Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be talking about silence skills applied to emotion. And this is vital right now in particular because we are in a culture that's very divided around emotion. We have one side of that divide that's deeply emotional in a way that is overwhelming. And then we have another side that's repressed in emotion and kind of distrusts emotion altogether. And silence skills allow us to meet in the middle, where emotions are data, they're color, they help us figure out, or they help us identify what we care about, what we're scared of, what's relevant and irrelevant, but they're data that can process through us and not just get stuck. And so what does that mean? Meaning, what is the outcome of a skillfully silent approach to emotion? Well, the outcome is one where instead of tumbling into emotion world, kind of like Jack Skellington when he tumbles into Christmas world and all of a sudden everything is colored by emotion, a skillful approach to emotion is where emotion is like light coming through stained glass windows. They impact us and they color our experience, and again, they kind of orient us to where our values are and what we care about, but they don't disrupt us altogether. And again, it's not this repressed, sterilized experience with emotion either, where we're just denying the data altogether. And then, so what does that mean? How do the silence skills allow us to be in that middle ground where emotions impact us but don't uproot us? Well, first, the silence skills are embodied. They remind us to be with our body, and this is where emotions are processed. They are physiological experiences, not just mental phenomenon. And this is where talking it out can feel very cyclical with emotions. You can find someone who wants to talk about something emotional over and over and over again, and 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 years, they're still there because they're experiencing the emotion in their mental plane, but they're not allowing the emotion to process through their body. And we can become, as we practice silence skills, meaning as we practice a precise awareness of our physiological body and how it moves and changes, we can skillfully shift in response to emotions when they're present. And for example, sadness is heavy. It asks us to move a little slower. And anxiety is pressured. It asks us to move. Anger similarly has a certain pressure, and it can instigate and it can encourage certain behavior, but silence and presence specifically gives us a precision of where that action is, as opposed to kind of allowing anger to turn to rage, which is deeply dissociated and it spirals and it goes on longer than is useful. And so that's the first way that silence skills allow us to orient skillfully to emotion, is that they remind us that emotions exist and are processed in the body, not just the mind. And then two, the experience of the observer mind is really important when we're dealing with emotion. More so than just having space between you and the emotion, it helps you recognize that emotions are inherently biased. And what I mean by that is very neurological. Our emotions hijack or impact what's called the salience system of the mind. The salience system is an evolutionarily designed system that assigns certain importance to data that's coming in. Super useful because we are getting so much data all the time that we couldn't possibly orient skillfully if everything was kind of given the same priority. So the salience system helps us orient to what deserves our attention. But when it comes to emotion, the emotions themselves shift that salience system to reinforce themselves. They filter data to reinforce whatever narrative the emotion is telling. And this isn't dysfunctional. We don't need to stop this from happening. We just need to know that it's happening. We just need to be able to identify, okay, I'm angry right now, so the data that's coming in is going to reinforce that anger. I'm sad right now, and so the data coming in is going to reinforce an inevitability or like a hopelessness, a despair. And having the observer mind, having a space between you and that emotion, paired with a real wisdom around how our emotions impact that data integration, just gives you some space from this. And it helps set the stage for skillful non-action, especially in those very intense moments. It gives you the precision of presence to say, yes, this is really intense right now, and this emotion is data, and I can feel it very intensely. But I can see that this slice of time isn't the most skillful place to act from, because I know that it's going to shift as the wave settles back in. And so the humility, the recognition, the recognition of the observer mind and how the mind is impacted by emotion sets the stage for non-action, which is another silence skill that culturally we don't reinforce. We reinforce action, we reinforce what people do. We don't have great terminology even to say that. Good job not doing that. Good job not acting from a place that is chaotic and harmful. I'm proud of you for not acting right now. And we can have language that reinforces that. And then lastly, the silence skills orient us to where emotions are personal and impersonal. And I'll start with that second one because, as I've just identified, the kind of embodied quality of emotions and the way that they impact the mind, this has less to do with our identity and more to do with a very human experience that's been happening for a long time, that's been happening in different ways to all the humans that have come before us. And in this way, emotions are more like weather patterns that we're experiencing in a transient way than they are aspects of our identity. And this is crucial for people experiencing intense emotions. They start to settle into that transience. They start to trust that transience, and they start to feel a level of stable as those emotional intensities are moving. So that's the way that emotions are impersonal. But then emotions are personal in scope, meaning emotions are data for our personal human unfolding. Emotions are data for what's relevant to you and you alone. And this applies to what empathy and skillful empathy means, meaning we can certainly, and we should, open our windows of awareness to another individual, especially individuals that we care about, when they're experiencing intense emotion. Because our shared kind of space of awareness helps lighten that load, it helps them process it. But what we can't do is process it for them. And if we forget that emotional experience is only personal, meaning only relevant to our human unfolding, then we find ourselves kind of lost in this virtual reality of other people's emotions and unable to process that. Emotions are personal because that's the only place that we can process emotions, where emotions become alchemized into deepened understanding. And again, this can start by a recognition of an emotion in someone else, but we have to trace that strand back to how their emotion impacts us, how it reminds us of a certain fear, how it reminds us of a certain vulnerability or imperfection. And in this way, we can both hold space and encourage other people to process their emotions compassionately, but actually prioritize our own processing of emotion and prevent that kind of stuck wandering around in this way too broad experience of generalized emotion. And so again, skillful silence shows us where emotions are impersonal and where they are deeply, simply personal. And so the videos that follow will take certain emotions and orient to how skillful silence meets those emotions to allow them to be more skillful. And again, the outcome of that is one where the emotions are processed, where they're moved through, and where they lead to deepened understanding, not where they're repressed or where they're so overwhelming and repetitive that they get stuck. And these videos are not meant to kind of tell you how to feel these things well or how to do it right. It's less like science and more like art. But they are meant to give you certain viewpoints to what certain emotions come with, the kind of package that you can expect, and the way in which skillful silence can meet those characteristics, can meet those experiences, so that you can go forward with a bit of a compass, a bit of a insight to what to expect.